Bradenton, the plantation part, is a plantation built on the growth of cotton. They grew other things, a lot of corn, other crops, but cotton is why the plantation here, why the wealth is here. Cotton is a very important story, and we tell that, along with all livestock. You need livestock to grow those crops, horse to plow the fields, hogs to eat, sheep to raise wool with, chickens for eggs and meat, all those things that we do here today. We have behind me an enslaved house built in the 1830s or 40s probably, and that's a significant thing. There aren't too many enslaved houses existing today. We have them restored and furnished like they're from the time periods, from the 1840s and 50s. And right now, we're doing a lot of restoration on some of our key structures to really bring them up, take care of them, also really intensify that historical look and feel inside and out. You come out here, you can see what they're eating, you can understand it better, so you can really get a feeling for the past, just not walking around seeing empty buildings or reading a brochure. Bradenton has a long, rich history spanning, a good 150 years. You walk in the buildings, you get a sense of the past, how people lived, and various skill sets, from the large plantation owner to the enslaved population, because they all have an important story to tell here.
In today's Our Town, we're taking you close to the South Carolina border to check out Mineral Springs. South of Charlotte and just east of Waxhaw, with a population of just over 3,000, this tiny town provides a relief from the big city hustle and bustle. Spectrum News photojournalist Charlton Winston takes us on a trip through Mineral Springs in today's Our Town.
Town is brought to you by Brownlee Jewelers.
Here in Mineral Springs really value our conservation. We value our natural environment, and I think that sets us apart from a lot of the neighboring towns in Union County. We focus on larger lots, we focus on preserving the woodland and the creeks, promoting outdoor recreation, and still keeping ourselves a very nice, safe, and comfortable place to live. We have a greenway, one of the first segments of the Carolina Thread Trail that was actually on the ground and open to the public in Union County. That greenway follows a couple of the creeks in our town. It's a natural surface trail, but it's really one of our centerpieces. People can get their kids out, they can get into the creek, they can play in the mud, look for crawdads, and really have a good time. Another really prime spot, and you don't see it very often as a visitor, would be the Queen's Cup Steeplechase property. Even though it's not open to the public, it's not owned by the town, it's such an important part of what we do in Mineral Springs, and it really sums up our outdoor horse conservation, open space theme that I consider it a very big part of the town. The commitment to small town image, small town values, small town focus, I think sets us apart.
Thanks. Spears and Reuben Jones were at today's speech. We start now with Reuben. Reuben, what were the main points from the president today?
Well, Brittany, good evening. The president spoke for about an hour this afternoon at CPCC. His speech sounded very similar to what he said in his State of the Union address earlier this week. While the focus was on opportunity zones, zones that are meant to improve areas that are economically disadvantaged in cities, he couldn't help touch on a very busy week in politics.
They have a failed impeachment hoax.
The impeachment trial was definitely on the mind of President Trump Friday, but he also says it's time to move on.
Now that's a thing of the past. They can put that on their resume.
But there were other issues the president talked about. Flanked by North Carolina congressional members, the speech touched on many topics featured in the State of the Union, including opportunity zones, which give tax incentives to people who invest in a property or business in areas that are economically disadvantaged.
To lift up underserved communities across the nation, our tax cuts created nearly 9,000 opportunity zones. Again, Tim Scott, including more than 250 right here in North Carolina.
Mecklenburg County has 17. While the president praised them, Congresswoman Alma Adams tweeted during the speech that, quote, if the president were serious about allocating resources for opportunity zones in Charlotte, he would also ensure the people who live in the zones didn't face displacement, end quote. Trump also talked about funding for historically black colleges and universities and criminal justice reform.
This is the first time where prisoners are coming out and getting jobs and not having to go back. The percentage is unbelievably different.
They are topics Senator Thom Tillis says have been prioritized by the Trump administration. And despite a week of partisan politics, Tillis says there are issues where Republicans and Democrats can work together.
Of course, when you have impeachment, tensions are going to flare, but we'll get right back to doing that work. And in areas where we're just ideologically too far apart, that's what you have elections for.
Tillis, interestingly, was called out by President Trump earlier, saying that they've disagreed on a few things, but he considers him to be a great friend. I asked Tillis about that after the speech. He said, yes, they have disagreed on some things, but overall he thinks that they get along well and that President Trump may respect some disagreement among his colleagues in the Senate. Now, this was a big speech and an interesting one as well, and it had a lot of interest here locally, including right around in the Charlotte area. Spectrum News reporter Tim Spears joins me now, and Tim, you're covering that side of the story.
Yeah, that's right. There were dozens out here kind of protesting for and against President Donald Trump. And what was interesting is that even though people were divided politically, they had no problem rallying side by side. Though one demonstrator I talked to said that when it comes time for the RNC this summer, he's worried Charlotte can become another Charlottesville. Even though these demonstrators are protesting out in public, some are worried about being seen by the other side.
I'd rather just have my sign here and do my thing.
This protester doesn't want to give out his name. He's worried one of the Republican demonstrators will publish his identity online to target him with harassment.
Right-wing fanatics that stalk people online, threaten people.
Though it didn't escalate past political chants and name-calling, he's worried it won't take much for demonstrations at the Republican National Convention in August to become another Charlottesville, where white supremacists and counter-protesters clashed, leading to dozens injured and 3 deaths.
Because there's so many wackos out there with guns, and the right, they're crazy, man.
Before the Democratic National Convention in 2012, Charlotte City Council passed the Extraordinary Events Ordinance, allowing police to ban a wide range of objects that could be used as weapons during large gatherings. Corrine Cathy, who plans to vote for the president this year, doesn't think it will be needed this summer.
It's okay to have disagreements. We just need to agree to disagree.
This is one of the most divisive conventions in our history.
Dimple Ajmera and the rest of Charlotte City Council have not discussed bringing the ordinance back. A city spokesman said the city manager and city council likely won't consider it unless there's a recommendation from CMPD.
We are planning for the worst and hoping for the best.
This man's hopes aren't so high.
It's just going to be a nightmare. It really is.
Now, one of the big safety concerns in Charlottesville that also happened during the 2016 RNC is a high number of open carry protesters, demonstrators walking around carrying a lot of firearms. Now, under North Carolina state law right now, it's already illegal to open carry around parades and picket lines, which will probably also cover the RNC this summer. Live in Charlotte, Tim Spears, Spectrum News.